Today, I have decided to dive into a topic that fires me up every single time I speak about it: when people call you lucky. And guess what? This episode is going out on my birthday. Yep, today is my birthday. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I had a whole host of things, but this felt like the perfect topic because I'm taking some time to celebrate myself and my journey to 41 and how much my success has been down to hard work, persistence, and intentional choices, not luck. Honestly, I hear this word a lot when people see my business, my work, my wins, my life, and they say, "You're so lucky." And I know they don't mean any harm, but honestly, it really triggers me. It actually makes me a little bit furious, and you will know that if you know me well. But today I want to talk about why, and I want to go into more detail about why. Because let's be real, luck has happened along the way, but it has very little to do with where I have ended up and the successes that I've had. And if you've ever been told the same thing, if you've ever felt like people were dismissing your hard work by calling it luck, then this episode is for you. But before we dive in, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to Show Up and Be Heard. The podcast exists to help women like you simplify your business and your life so that you can stop feeling so overwhelmed. I am your host, Becky McAvoy, owner and founder of Be Heard Socials, and I am an award-winning social media marketer and international speaker who specialises in content strategy and organic growth on social media. Through this podcast, as well as my own social media, email community, and my award-winning membership, the Boss Your Socials Club, my mission is to cut through the noise to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand for businesses that can't afford to outsource or who don't have the teams required to implement most of the advice that is being given to them. So if you want to cut through the noise and BS and get practical, actionable advice tailored specifically to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand, or if you want to be part of a supportive community where women entrepreneurs can feel connected and inspired to achieve their dreams, then keep listening because you are in the right place. To get more tips like the ones you hear in this podcast, make sure you join my email community through the link in the show notes. All right then, let's get started with this week's episode. Okay, so first things first, as I said in the intro, it is my birthday today. Not at the point I'm actually recording it, but at the point this is going to be going out, it is my birthday. So if you want to come over, sing me happy birthday, say happy birthday, send me a present, shower me with love, then please feel very, very free to. I am here for all of that. But that's not what I'm going to be talking about today. I am going to be talking about the word lucky and why it triggers me so much when people tell me I am lucky. And I want to start off with talking about the problem with the word lucky, I guess, because I want to unpack what people actually mean when they say someone's lucky, or even if they don't know, when I say what they actually mean, what's kind of underlying in them saying somebody else is lucky or calling me lucky. It's a little bit like saying, wow, this just happened for you. Like, it's as if the success, the opportunities, the results, like just fell into my lap. Or if they're calling you lucky, fell into your lap. And you know what? That's simply not true. And it's quite offensive. For example, when people see my business running smoothly, they don't see the 5 years of consistent effort that went into building it. They don't see the breakdown that happened before it. And when I had to pick myself back up from rock bottom, and they don't see the nights I spent working late while my kids were asleep. And now I don't advocate that. And I'm trying to stop that a lot more now, but it happened. And like, I'm not saying that's the only way that you can be successful, but it happened. I've worked a lot of hours to make it happen. They don't see the constant learning, the adjusting, the failing, the getting back up again, the money that I've invested into my business and into myself, to be the best version of myself, to have the best business that I can have. And it's not just a business either. This happens in so many areas of life. Maybe someone sees another person in a great relationship. And I get this quite a lot with my relationship with my husband. I'm very grateful for where we are today. And we get told quite a lot like, oh, you two are so lucky. You're so lucky to have such a great partner. But is it luck? Or is it two people who have worked on communications, boundaries and respect? Is it two people who have, and do you know what, I'm going to be honest with this, like with me and my husband, had arguments and had to be really vulnerable and open to listening to each other and like hearing each other's sides and make both of us making changes. I also get triggered by like that aspect of it because my husband gets told he's lucky way less, and it's not because I'm any less awesome than he is. I was going to say I'm more awesome, but that's, by the by, it's probably not true. We are both awesome people, but he gets told it way less. But I get like it's quite a feminist rant for me as well. And I get told you're so lucky that basically I'm so lucky that my husband isn't a dick. Excuse the language, but no, I'm not. Like I've chosen to be with somebody who match my values, match the way I want to live my life. And at times that we've clashed, like it's happened. It happens with having kids. We've had some really difficult conversations. So yeah, is it luck? Or is it two people who have worked really hard and put themselves out there to work on communication, boundaries, respect? Now, I am very grateful that he is someone that was open to that. And we could, like not everybody is, and some people will shut it right down. But had he been that person, I honestly wouldn't still be with him. And I know that sounds really harsh, but I wouldn't. Because it's about making choices and it's about, deciding what you're worth and what you're going to put up with. So yeah, luck implies randomness. And while there are some moments of good timing, let's not confuse that with the consistent effort and choices that lead to success and lead to people getting to where they want to be and living lives that they want to live. And speaking of luck, I want to share a quote that really, really resonates with me. It is from the absolute queen that is Shonda Rhimes. I've shared this on my social media before. I love Shonda Rhimes. I love pretty much everything she has ever created. And her quote goes like this: I am not lucky. You know what I am? I am smart. I am talented. I take advantage of the opportunities that come my way. And I work really, really hard. Don't call me lucky. Call me a badass. And this quote is just everything for me. I just love it. But I do want to acknowledge something that's really important in this conversation. And I'm going to try and address it in the best way possible. And that is privilege. Because yes, I've worked hard, I've made sacrifices and I've taken risks, but I've also had privileges that have helped me along the way. By being white, I am incredibly privileged. There are lots of different, I'm not going to list them all off. I am very aware that privileges have helped me to get where I have, and not everybody will have the same opportunities as me. I have had opportunities and advantages that others may not have had, and I always try to recognize that privilege and pay it forward in my work and do what I can to try and make the world a better place. I don't do that anywhere near as much as I could do, but I try and do it as much as I can, whether that's offering guidance, helping others achieve their goals, or using my platform to create space for those who don't have the same starting point that I did, or use my platforms to share things. I speak about this in knowing what to share on social media, to share injustices, even if that can lose you support or make you unpopular. So yeah, I recognize that privilege has also played a huge part in my success, and I have had opportunities and advantages that lots of people won't have had. But the thing with me when talking about why I get really triggered by the word lucky is often when people call me lucky, they just aren't recognizing that they have those same privileges too. So yes, I'm incredibly privileged, but not even lots of, I think almost exclusively the times I've been called lucky that I get really irritated by it are people who have exactly the same privileges that I have had. Maybe they have the same opportunities, but they haven't made the choices I've made to take advantage of them, or had the same conversations that I've had. And that's with no discredit to them, but don't discredit somebody else's success based on things that you haven't done. For example, and I've never actually shared this publicly before. So one of the ways that I often get called lucky is I get to make choices in my business. Like I look at, I dropped to a 4-day week. I'm currently looking to drop into a 3-day week. And, I'm really, in lots of ways, I am really privileged that I'm able to do that because, of the financial security that we have through my husband's work, through the financial security that we have through my work as well, and through savings that we have built up. But the side of this that I've never spoken about, and partly because it's not really my story to tell, I know he will be happy for me to share it. I'm not going to go into detail about it because I don't want to. I speak quite openly about the mental health struggles that we've been through, particularly with my husband and my husband's depression. and what that led to. And what I've never shared publicly is that through that time, he got us into thousands of pounds of debt. Um, like at a time where, it was something that contributed to my eventual breakdown. When I was in, like my employed job, and I ended up leaving that employed job. He got us into thousands of pounds of debt, and it was something that we had to work really freaking hard to get out of. um we made choices, we made really difficult choices. So I have said about leaving my job, but to enable me to do that, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, fortunately, I guess, in that situation. But the reason that we was able to do that is because we took our kids out of nursery, of which at the time we were paying I think it was about £1,200 a month we were paying for both of them to be in nursery. That saved a massive chunk, and we stripped back other luxuries to allow me to do that. But it was also at a time where he'd got us into thousands of pounds of debt, and we had to make lots of choices. We had to strip back on luxuries, and when I say luxuries, I mean like everything. Like we strip back on tons and tons of stuff that I think some people don't see as luxuries, but forget that they actually are. We went for a very long time. I always say, without having a pot to pee in, we still, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, we were still incredibly privileged because we had a roof over our heads and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I'm calling some of that stuff luxuries. But we worked our butt off to get ourselves out of that debt. We stripped back on the luxuries to make us financially secure again. I did a cleaning job for quite a while to make some extra money. What else did we do? We had foreign exchange students to be able to earn some money as well, like to really work really hard to get ourselves out of that debt. And it took years to get us out of that debt, where we didn't have the same like freedom and flexibility that we have now. But we made choices there. Those weren't just random strokes of luck. I'm really incredibly proud to say that we are now debt free. I mean, we have our mortgage and I have my student loan, but I don't class those as debts for various different reasons. It's probably the proudest thing that I think we have ever done together, is to get ourselves out of that debt. And like I said, I've never shared this publicly because I feel a little bit vulnerable saying it now. And I don't want to go into lots of detail around it because it's just not, I speak to people about this, not privately necessarily, but not on like a public, like on my socials or on my podcast or whatever. It's just not something I want to go into details about because I don't need to. But it feels relevant to this conversation because often I would be told I'm lucky now because oh, we must be loaded, or we must have loads of money, or we must have this and that. That's still not true, by the way. We have just found a way to live that works for us, and to get ourselves out of that debt. It wasn't random strokes of luck. They were intentional decisions that have led us to the life we've got today. And I am so endlessly grateful for that. And a lot of privilege came along with that. Like I said, I've got, like a loving family around me. I've got access to opportunities I might not have had. Like I said, we had those foreign exchange students. The fact that we had the space to be able to have those, like that was wonderful too. Like I know I'm incredibly privileged in lots of ways, but people don't see any of that, and they don't see that it had to come, like we had to make some really difficult choices that are available to, if I think back to the people that have called me lucky, I think nearly every one of them have got those same choices that they could make if they wanted to. And they might not want to. And I'm not saying, oh, be more like me, make those choices, but also don't call people lucky. That's, I think, where it kind of triggers. Don't dismiss it off as luck. So it's not like you have to do everything I've done. And you like, aren't you a terrible person because you haven't made those same choices? Like, no, absolutely not. You do what's right for you. Not everybody wants to strip back on all the things that we strip back on, and we didn't really want to, but we kind of had to. But if you don't want to strip back on that stuff, that's okay. But don't dismiss somebody else's success as luck when you haven't seen the choices that have gone behind getting them into the position that they are in. And I guess here's where it gets really real for me. If you're listening to this and you're running your own business, you know the work that goes into it. You know that it's really hard. So let's let's break it down a little bit. I didn't just wake up one day with a successful business. I had to put myself out there, even when it was uncomfortable, even when things went wrong. I had to learn marketing, sales, content strategy, and all the moving parts of running a business. I had to get things wrong, so many things. And instead of giving up, I had to go back, tweak, and try again. And I had to constantly be intentional in the decisions that I was making. I had to make sacrifices. Sometimes that meant saying no to social events, adjusting my work-life balance, and figuring out how to grow without burning out. And, like I said earlier, sometimes it meant working late into the night. And sometimes it meant getting to the point of going, Becky, you're working like too late too often, and you need to stop this. And you need to strip back some of the things that you really would love to do right now, but don't have the capacity to, if you want to put your kids to bed, and if you want to take school holidays off, and if you want to do like X, Y, and Z. And it was having to have real conversations with myself, like about like, what are you willing to sacrifice? And sometimes, do you know what, sometimes I have sacrificed bedtimes with the kids, but never if it was like I was never ever putting them to bed. Sometimes I have sacrificed that. I sacrificed that when I wanted to launch this podcast, because I knew the work needed to go into it, but I was comfortable with that because it was short-term sacrifices. So yeah, like I've made sacrifices along the way on both sides of the coin. And it's not like I will never sacrifice time with my children, because sometimes I will, but never at the expense of what really matters if they need me. So yeah, basically, I guess what I'm trying to say, and I don't know if I'm articulating this well, I really hope, I feel very, very vulnerable right now. And I hope this episode is coming across in the way that it's intended, but it's come from being intentional, and it's come from making choices. And like, it's come from figuring out like how to do all of this without burning out, and saying no to things that sometimes I wanted to say yes to, and all that kind of stuff. And there were absolute moments of doubt in there. There were moments when I didn't know if it would work, and I had to show up anyway. And that's kind of the difference, isn't it? So when someone looks at the end result and says, wow, you're lucky, or, oh, I can't do that, Becky's really lucky because she has XYZ, what they're really missing is the journey that it took to get here, and not the journey it just took to create my business. Like the 41 years journey of my life, as this is coming out on my business, like along the way, like stuff's happened, and you've had to build up resilience to things. You've gone through things that has made you the kind of person that you are. And it just dismisses so much of that. Okay, I was going to say, let's get into why this gets under my skin so much. I feel like I've probably got into some of that already. But also, I just want to say, like, when people call me lucky, it's not just frustrating. It's, like I said earlier, it's just a bit offensive. It undermines everything I've worked for. For me, that's what it feels like. And it makes me wonder, and this is a bit of a feminist run again, but that's who I am. So they're kind of my thing. It's fine. Would they say the same thing to a man who built a business? Or would they acknowledge his strategy, his risk-taking, his leadership? Would they call him lucky? Or would they say, wow, you've worked so hard, well done? In the same way that, am I really lucky that I'm a good mum and I'm able to show up for my kids? Or have I made intentional choices? Like in the same way that they so quickly say to men, like, oh, they so quickly say to me, you're so lucky because your husband does this. And how many times will they tell him that he's lucky? Now that used to, you know what, this is so complicated, I think, this as a topic, because that used to really trigger him when I would say, I'm not lucky that, this, that, and the other, that he's not some 1950s husband, blah, blah, blah. And it used to make him feel like I didn't appreciate. And this was one of the real honest, vulnerable conversations we had. It used to make him feel like I didn't appreciate what he did, because I am really grateful for everything that he does. He does do a lot. Like it is, I think we have a fairly fair split of what we do. Sometimes he does more, sometimes I do more, based on what's going on with our lives, because that's how I think a good partnership works. And one of the conversations we had to have is like, I'm not lucky that you do that in the same way that you're not lucky that I do it. I am very grateful that you do that. And I do really appreciate the way that you do that. So, we've had some of those conversations, but in terms of the topic of what I'm talking about today, there's something about the way that women's success, or mums are spoken about, is often framed as luck or circumstantial or just what we should do, rather than the result of the intentional effort that it took to get there. And that's what really, really gets to me. So, I just, it's one of those things. I get it a lot, and sometimes I get it from people who don't have business. Oh, you're so lucky to work for yourself. And like I said, I know there's no ill intent around people saying that I'm lucky that I work for myself, or I'm lucky that I get to work 3 days a week, or that I'm so lucky to have a successful membership or whatever. I know very rarely there's ill intent behind what's being said. But it just always makes me think, like, lucky. Like, I built this life. I didn't get handed the life. Like I said, it did come with some privileges, and I'm not going to undermine that. But it was terrifying at first. Like, it was terrifying leaving my job. It was terrifying having to pick myself back up from that breakdown and work through some really hard self-awareness and like knowing myself, and work through some of that. It was terrifying. I guess that's the only way to say it. I had to find clients, I had to build trust, I had to prove my value, I had to push through self-doubt so much, and I still have to do that. And luck just wasn't there sitting next to me helping me through that. Like, opportunities came my way, but I go back to that Shonda Rhimes quote where you know I took advantage of those opportunities, and not everybody takes advantage of those opportunities. Like, lots of my success has been from word of mouth and referrals. Certainly, the first client I ever worked with was the wonderful Elisa, if you know her from Baby Bear's Den, and I am eternally grateful to her. Without the opportunities that she gave me, I would not have a business. Be Heard Socials would not exist. I wouldn't have built up my so I started working with her in the October. By the Christmas, I was working doing social media management for five clients. I had 5 different clients on my books, all of which came from her referring me. I am eternally grateful for that, eternally grateful. But she wouldn't have recommended me if I wasn't good. So am I lucky that she recommended me? No. She recommended me because I was really good. Am I grateful that she recommended me? Yes, absolutely. And it's just in the language, isn't it? So yeah. Let's go a little bit deeper into this. When people say okay, I've touched on some of this, but I'm going to touch on a few more things. When people say you're lucky, and we'll talk about this in terms of business, to a successful business owner, what they don't see is the countless rejections and no's that came before the yeses, the things that we failed before the thing that worked, the sheer persistence it takes to keep going. And that is real in business. And if you're listening to this, if anybody's ever called you lucky, or even if they haven't, like, just take some time to celebrate yourself. The persistence that we need to be successful business owners is next level. It is unreal. And that in itself is why no one should ever call us lucky, because it's hard. It's really hard. The mindset work needed to believe in yourself, even when others don't, is next level. It is unreal. And that stuff isn't easy. The risks we take, the financial stress, the years of figuring things out to get things right. And, like, I'm going to talk about privilege again, because I do really want to recognise in this episode that I am very aware of privileges that I face and other people's face. And it is a conversation that needs addressing in the conversation around being lucky. Because some people do start with advantages. And I am one of those people. By the colour of my skin, I am one of those people. By the fact that I am able-bodied, I am one of those people. Like, for various other reasons, I am one of those people. Some people have financial backing. I didn't have financial backing, but I do have a partner who has a full-time income, and that helps. That not everybody has. If I was a single parent, for example, it would be very, very different. Or people have networks who help them as well. But even those people still have to do the work. Privilege might open the door, but it doesn't walk you through it. I've also been called lucky in the past about the relationship I have with my family. And if you know me, I am, like, insanely close with my family. Like, my family are my best friends. But I also kind of want to recognise that, because yes, to a degree, I don't know whether you'd call that privilege or luck, but to a degree, it's like luck, the family that you are put into. And, not everybody, in fact, lots of people aren't born into loving families and struggle with things. And I, have some stories around that I won't talk about publicly. But in terms of my family, like, we love each other, but it annoys me when people say that I'm lucky on that behalf, because we work hard for that. Like, we work hard to make time to see each other. We work hard, we disagree with each other, and we will have arguments sometimes, and we work hard to put those differences aside. I'm not sure if my mum's going to be listening to this, and I'll know, because she'll message me to say about this if she is. Me and my mum, very, very different political beliefs. And that's all I'll say on that. I won't go into it. We have very different political beliefs. We're both very good people. We disagree on things that can be huge sometimes, but we work hard on finding the boundaries in our relationship of what we talk about and what we don't, how we talk about it respectfully, whether there's things in there that can be said that upset each other. And that comes down to like us loving each other, but it also comes down to us challenging each other. And like with my sisters, it will come down to us challenging each other to say, actually, like that thing upset me. And I'm not saying, I am, and whether it's the word privileged or not, because I don't want to use the word lucky, that I have a family that responds to that, but it takes work on both of our sides. So yeah, it's just like, I think that's what I'm saying. Like, privilege absolutely opens the doors, and the world isn't set on an equal footing. That is a different conversation that I'm not going to delve into right now. But like I said earlier, I guess my thing around lucky is that when I've been called it's always, it's not even nearly always, it has always been by people with the same privileges as me that haven't necessarily made the same choices. And like I said, that doesn't make them wrong. But maybe they should think about what they're saying, I guess is what I'm saying. So, like, how do we reframe the narrative around it? Like, what should people say instead? Because like I said earlier, I think 90% of the time that it's been said to me, it's not been with ill intent, and it's not been to offend me, and it's about triggering me. And I've had to do some work on how I respond and react to that, because I'm not in control of whether people call me lucky. I am in control of how I respond to it. But I guess that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it today, because I kind of wanted to put it out there as a conversation to see what other people think about it. So when people call us lucky, what should we say instead? How can we shift the conversation? And I've been thinking about this when I was writing the notes for this episode. And I was thinking, instead of saying you're so lucky, like, maybe check yourself before you say that. What if we said, I admire how much work you've put into this, or you've built something incredible, or I see the effort and dedication behind this, or isn't it incredible that you and your husband have such a great relationship where you can talk to each other? I'd love to tell me about some of the conversations you had around that. I'd love some advice on how you did this thing. Like, ask for the help. But yeah, I admire how much work you've put into this. You've built something incredible. I see the effort and dedication behind this. Is just very different to going, you're so lucky, isn't it? It's like those small shifts in language make a huge difference. They, for me, acknowledge the effort instead of writing it off as chance. And they remind us that success isn't magic, it's intentional. And that's something I pride myself on being with all the decisions I make and all the choices I make, is being intentional. And if you're on the receiving end of someone calling you lucky, I've been thinking about this because I've had to do it for myself. Here are a few things that maybe you can do to reframe the narrative on that respect. Firstly, like I said, and a bit probably like I'm doing this episode, and actually, as the episode's gone on, there's been various different times that I'm like, oh, should I stop recording and talk about something else? But actually, no, because I think something we can do to reframe the narrative is to speak up kindly and confidently. You can share the hard work that went into getting where you are. I've touched on that in this episode. I haven't gone into lots of detail about it for me, and I hope genuinely that this has come across as kindly and confidently. We do worry about that as women, don't we? If we start challenging things and like going, basically, if as women we start speaking up, we go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I'm going to offend someone. What if someone listens to this and thinks it's about them, or now doesn't like me, or whatever? When, truth is, this episode isn't about any one person in particular. It's not about, definitely not about trying to offend anyone. It's just about trying to have the conversation. So let's have more of us speak up kindly and confidently. Let's share the hard work that went into getting where we are, and not be afraid that that will come across as showing off. We should also absolutely acknowledge our own privileges and be aware of how our journey might be different from others. So, how I respond to, to be fair, I've never been in a situation where it's been said to somebody where I haven't looked at it and gone, do you know what, you have all the same privileges that I have. But it is really important that we acknowledge that, and we don't undermine difficulties that other people face that don't have the same privileges that we may have been born with. So yeah, acknowledge your privilege, speak up, acknowledge your privilege. And don't shy away from highlighting the choices you made that brought you to the point of the success that you are at today. This helps others see that success is earned and not handed out. It helps them see that difficult choices lead to really great things. I feel like I honestly feel so grateful. And this is kind of why I wanted the episode to come out on my birthday. So on the day that this episode is coming out, I've turned 41. And I say to my husband quite a lot now, I feel so grateful for the life that we have and the life that we have created, because we have done that through hard work, through choices, through saying things to no, saying no to things that don't align with us and don't sit with us. We've lost friends along the way, people along the way, because we've been bold enough to go, no, these are our boundaries. And let's step into it. Let's make these choices and know that some of that's going to be hard. And actually, my words of the year for this year are the wonderful Mel Robbins, I let them, because I'm still on that journey. I'm still having to make choices. And I learned that a lot last year. I'm having to make choices to protect my peace and protect the life that I want. So I hope that by talking about it, it gives you permission to do the same. It gives you a chance to reflect, and it gives you a chance to think. And if you are using the word lucky, maybe just think about, even if that's not the way that you're intending, think about the way that it might be received. Or if you're calling people privileged, have a think about whether you are actually privileged in the same ways. You just haven't necessarily made the same choices, or you might be much earlier on in the journey to where the person that you're calling lucky or privileged is, if you have the same privileges, that is. And, like I spoke earlier about, and I touched on it very briefly because I don't want to go into detail about it. I spoke about, us finding ourselves in thousands of pounds of debt because of my husband's mental health struggles. And that was nearly 7 years ago. So we are 7 years on from that point, and we have been debt free, I think, for about 2 years, maybe just under. So it took us 5 years to get there. So, it would be a very different conversation if I was recording this podcast, say that was 7 years ago, if I was recording it 6.5 years ago or 5 years ago. So yeah, don't shy away from highlighting the choices that you've made that brought you to the point that you're at, because it helps other people see that sometimes it does take time, but struggles lead to things. Like if you see someone lead it, like running a business in the way that you want to run it, and I'm not saying that's me, because I run a business in a way lots of people wouldn't want to run it, but if you do see people leading that, surround yourselves with those people and be inspired by those people rather than dismissing what they've got as luck. And that's one of the most powerful things I've done, and I'm continuing to do, is surrounding myself with the right people. And rather than seeing them as lucky, see them as a way, as proof that it's possible, as proof that it's possible to have that life if that's what you want. So yeah, I could talk all day on this. I'm very passionate about it. It does really trigger me. I hope this episode has come across in the way that it's intended. I'd really love to know what you think about it. I say that every time, but this is a very personal one. So I would love to know what you think about it. But let's wrap this up on saying and owning that success isn't about luck, or it isn't about holy luck. It's about choices. It's about effort. It's about showing up even when it's hard. And if you're listening to this, I want you to own your own journey in that. I want to thank you for listening as well, because I'd love to know where you're at in your journey of this. Are you at a place where you found yourself thinking people are lucky, and actually maybe this has made you think that's more about you than it is about them? Have you ever been called lucky? Does it rile you? Are you not bothered? Are you a much calmer Zen person than I am? How does it make you feel? Let's continue the conversation around this, because I would really, really love to hear from you. And I am just going to end by saying, don't ever let anyone tell you that your success wasn't earned, and don't let them dismiss it as luck. Thank you so much for listening to Show Up and Be Heard, but please don't go without telling me your name. I genuinely love meeting new people and making new connections. So if you don't already, I'd love it if you'd come find me on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook and drop me a message to say hello and let me know what you thought of the episode. The link to all my socials are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode or found it useful, then I'd really appreciate it if you could take just a few minutes to give it a review on whatever platform you are listening on, because every one I get really does make me do a little squeal and a big happy dance. Finally, more than anything else, please always remember, realising that you're not actually meant to do this stuff alone is the first step to making it easier. So I'll see you next time.